During the early 40s, Walt Disney collaborated with Roald Dahl for an upcoming feature animated movie titled The Gremlins, based off the tales from the Royal Air Force, about mischievous goblin-like creatures spoiling and messing around with the Air Force equipment. Traditionally, these folk tales were often used by pilots to explain away malfunctioning gears on the job. In the Roald Dahl and Disney story, the reason why the Gremlins are retaliating against the Royal Air Force is because recently humans have rid away with their woodlands in order to build a sheltered air fortress. But eventually the Gremlins leader and a Royal Air Force pilot, both sharing the same name, Gus, are able to see eye to eye with one another, and they arrange for both groups to team up against a common enemy, that being Hitler and the Nazis. In the story, we get to learn quite a bit about gremlin culture, that infants and childlike gremlins are called widgets, and the ladies are known as fiffinellas. It was going to be a multimedia project, with books and merchandise to coincide with the release of the film, although since the idea of Gremlins originated from the Royal Air Force, and was not an original nor an exclusive creation of Walt Disney and Roald Dahl, other animated studios wanted to jump on the gremlin craze. Walt's brother/business partner, Roy O. Disney, wasn't exactly excited about other Gremlin cartoons, fearing that surrounding competition may spoil the prospect of the upcoming movie. He tried but failed to get exclusive rights over the name. He then took the diplomatic route, asking the other studios to not proceed forward, which did went down very smoothly. Barring Warner Brothers, however, this was because the two cartoons they were already making featuring Gremlins were far too deep in development to merely cancel, although they did comply by changing the titles. Bugs Bunny and the Gremlin was instead Falling Hair, and Gremlins from the Kemrim was renamed Russian Rhapsody, but ultimately the prospect of there being other Gremlin cartoons didn't matter anyway. Despite Disney already investing $50,000 into the project, the movie never materialized, due to a combination of not having the exclusive rights to the Gremlin name, and struggling to finalize the script with Roald Dahl, as it was part of the contract that he had final approval. But to be fair, by the time the movie would have been released, the war would have been close to being over. So in the prospect that it would have been very quickly dated, maybe it was for the best that Gremlins stayed as a children's book. But the Disney rendition of Gremlins still lived on in the format of comic books, and later appearing in the epic Mickey games. Musicland is a 1955 anthology animated Disney movie. The movie came about after the Disney company wanted to end their partnership with the movie studio RKO Pictures, who had been distributing the Disney films since Snow White. Although due to a change of management in the mid-50s, negotiations for a further collaboration fell through, after it was decided by RKO Pictures to cut back on investing in cartoons. But Disney was still obligated to supply RKO an additional film, so to fulfill this, Disney spliced animated segments from the movie Make My Music and Melody Time to format at a low cost a new feature film. Musicland was the final Disney movie to be distributed by RKO, as both movie studios' partnerships would cease in 1956. Although the split-off would have been forthcoming anyway, as RKO ceased production in 1957, and within a period of 2 years the company would be dissolved by 1959. Although as of 1981 the company does still semi-exist, such as collaborating once again with Disney to produce the Mighty Joe Young remake. But RKO is certainly far from the powerhouse that it once was. Following Disney movies would be distributed by Buena Vista Films, which was actually created by the Disney Corporation in 1953, so very much all Disney movies from here on out were very much handled in-house. Musicland marks an interesting transitional point for Disney, as the company would become far more independent into handling its releases, although being a byproduct of trying to skirt around a contractual obligation there and not featuring any major new content. The film has been largely forgotten and neglected by the Disney Corporation. It was officially removed being part of the Disney animation canon by 1985, and has never received any kind of home media release. While we know that the animation that was reused was certainly recycled from the Disney cartoon library, we still don't know as to what content was shown in the opening and ending of the film, and the transitions from each cartoon. In the 1960s, Walt Disney founded an education department where they would specialise into making films for either schools or local communities. These short films would frequently take advantage in Disney's animation library, repurposing a variety of classic cartoons to tell a new narrative, like teaching Goofy the value of money.
I'd really like to get that glider, but I don't have enough money for it.
Then why not save up for it?
Huh?
It's a very good habit to always put part of your income away as savings.
Or making a newly made live-action short film, where it would show a clip from one of the Disney features, to give an example on that film's moral message. Although there are a few that are fairly infamous now, such as one about menstruation with women, and another about family planning. This one features Donald Duck, but only in the capacity of transitioning from scene to scene, and doesn't speak or acknowledge about any of the issues or advice that were brought up during the film. Certainly somewhat of a rhetorical use of Donald Duck's image. While many of them were sincere and endearing in their intent, many others were certainly unique curiosities, to put it nicely. And perhaps by consequence being films very much of their time, many of these films have never garnered any official reshowings in recent years, so the only place to see the vast majority of them is via unofficial uploads to the internet. Although still, not every single one is available to watch online. One of the more notable short films that were created for the Disney Education lineup were those that featured brand new animations from Disney characters. One of the most consistently available are those presented by Jiminy Cricket, which those clips were later recycled for the Disney Sing-Along VHSs. But a series of films that have not yet reappeared online are those that featured Bambi and his friends, that were made between the mid-70s and mid-80s, although animation sales from those productions have reappeared on auction sites. During the early 1980s, Disney held the rights to the book Where the Wild Things Are. By 1983, the project had gotten as far as to having some test clips made for it. The assignment was being handled by John Lasseter's team, who was simultaneously working on a film based off the Brave Little Toaster story. The test animation that was done for Where the Wild Things Are had 2D animated characters in a CGI set. It was intended that the Brave Little Toaster would use this similar hybrid animation technique. After 8 months of development, the Brave Little Toaster story was presented to the Disney higher-ups. If the project was approved, then it would have made it John Lasseter's directorial debut, although the executives couldn't see the ingenuity of using CGI, feeling that the movie wouldn't be any more cost effective. And shortly after that meeting, Disney decided to let John Lasseter go. Or, in the more dramatic sense, they fired John. The Brave Little Toaster movie was eventually made by an independent company, as a traditionally animated film, although Disney did handle its distribution, being a common film that could be seen on the Disney Channel back in the 80s and 90s. And the Brave Little Toaster sequels were additionally handled in-house by Disney. While we don't know how different the John Lasseter Brave Little Toaster was, taking a look at the available storyboards, there are some scenes that never wound up being shown in the final Brave Little Toaster film, although Where the Wild Things Are never eventuated as any kind of movie or project at Disney. Apparently there was more animation by John Lasseter's team, but no more of it has ever become available to the public. No movie would be made of the Wild Things not until by 2009, as a live-action movie under the studio of Warner Brothers. Tailspin was an animated series by Disney that ran for a little over a year in 1990. It featured and utilised characters from Disney's Jungle Book. This included Baloo the Bear as the main character, King Louie as a reoccurring supporting character, and Shere Khan as the antagonist. Although the world of Tailspin is inhabited by anthropomorphic animals, which isn't in line with the Jungle Book film, so the program is very much set within its own universe. The show would later get a complete series DVD release, and can currently be streamed on Disney+. although there are 2 episodes that are missing from the Disney Plus lineup. The final episode of Tailspin, called Flying Dupes, features a plot where Baloo is delivering a parcel, but unbeknownst to him, the parcel is actually a bomb. After its initial airing, the episode wasn't shown again in reruns, perhaps due to the episode featuring the theme of terrorism and having some unsubtle Cold War undertones.
I have ordered all air vectors closed. If any of our pilots disturb me, you'll know what will happen.
Although 8 years later in 1999, the episode was shown again on Toon Disney, and you could purchase the episode on Volume 3 of the DVD. The other banned episode that can't be seen on Disney Plus is Last Horizon, where it heavily stereotypes and makes a mockery of several Asian cultures, preferably both the countries of China and Japan. And the story unsubtly takes quite a fair few cues of the real-life events of Pearl Harbor. It ceased re-airing on Toon Disney round about December of 2002, but it did get a chance to be released on DVD in 2007. While these 2 episodes are no longer within the official circles of Disney, they're not too hard to track down online. Although, here's a true piece of Tailspin missing media that can't be found anywhere. Actor Phil Harris did the original voice for Baloo in The Jungle Book. He was meant to reprise his role for the TV series, but after an audition, it was determined that his senior age just made him sound far too different. There's often been conflicting accounts as to how much Phil Harris recorded for the show initially. It was either between less than an episode or at least 5 episodes worth of dialogue. It's not known if any of those recordings do still exist. Nicknack was a 1989 Pixar short film, made while the company was still independent. It would be the final short film that the studio would create for some time, as during the early 90s Pixar worked on a variety of different commercial works, as well as pursuing that feature film deal with Disney. The short film focuses on novelty items, typically products you may find in a tourist destination. The main character of the short film being a snowman trapped in a snow globe who tries various ways to break out in the pursuit of the Bikini Misses. The characters were deliberately designed to be simple geometric shapes. As the last Pixar short film being Tin Toy, the crew tried and struggled creating the human character Baby, so they wanted to focus on the strengths of what the computers could do for the time, and that was creating characters out of simple shapes. To distinctly designed characters for the Pixar short film, the Bikini Lady and Mermaid's breasts were wildly exaggerated, due to the technical director being a pin-up enthusiast. Nicknack was later released on VHS as a compilation with other Pixar shorts, and then was featured on Toy Story's Deluxe Laserdisc. In 2003, Nicknack would be shown theatrically in front of Finding Nemo. However, Nicknack would be slightly altered for the release, as the bikini model and mermaid's breasts would be severely reduced in size. This decision in part was done by John Lasseter. It wasn't Big Bad Disney coming in insisting that we do this, it was our own choice. It was just crossing the line for me personally as a father, so I decided to reduce these characters' breast size. This has been the main standard version of Nicknack since, for when it was featured and released on DVD, Blu-ray and Disney+. In April 29th of 2024, Twitter user John W. announced that he was able to ascertain a 16mm copy of the original uncensored short. While it's a bit faded with several scratches, it will likely be the highest quality version we'll ever get of the original version, and online users who have a passion of restoring materials such as this will certainly put the raw scan to good use. In the early development for Finding Nemo, the movie was meant to have a series of flashbacks over the course of the story, where we would have seen Marlin and his partner Coral on how they first met, finding a new home, settling down and looking over their eggs, all the way up to the incident of the Barracuda, which was the only one with Marlin and Coral to make it in to the final movie.
So friends of mine, I did not know. They always skip the first chapter. And then there's one Thanksgiving, we're all hanging out. Somebody keep the kids busy, so I went over and they said, oh, we want to see Nemo. I threw the disc in and hit play, and then, she comes running, no, don't play the first.
Scarred them. Yeah.
but I always felt like the early version that was shown on the Blu-ray documentary was just a tiny bit more unhinged.
And it actually kind of worked. And if you were to just watch any of those moments, or especially the climax, it really had something there.
Yeah, I don't know about you lot, but to me, that was just far more horrifying. But that wasn't the real issue about the original version. The issue was with Marlin being such an overprotective character, and that there was no real explanation until the very end. It makes Nemo's dad seem rather annoying and unlikable. When you don't know where your main character is coming from throughout the majority of the movie, it makes the whole journey far less engaging.
I was getting advice from my peers here at Pixar that why don't you just try telling this backstory at the very beginning, just tell it linearly. But after about a year and a half of just seeing people not like the father again and again and again, I couldn't ignore it, and I thought, well, it's not going to hurt to just privately try cutting it that way. And the minute I took all those moments out and put them all to the front, not only were you immediately caught up in it, but you immediately empathized with the father.
I won't let anything happen to you. And while all the scenes with Marlin and Coral didn't end up in the final film, they're semi-available somewhat as a condensed version on the Blu-ray, alongside a featurette with Andrew Stanton. There is as well some minor and reworked scenes that have never been made fully available to the public.
And it's sometimes not till you get the whole thing up, and even a lot of it animated, and you really see what you have, that you come to realize that something's just not needed.
A favourite deleted line from co-director Lee Unkrich was shown on the Nemo Roundtable documentary. The line occurs when Dory is mesmerised by the luminescent organ from the anglerfish.
Grandma? Is that you?
Because it kept cracking us up, but it didn't crack other people up.
Yeah, and I remember just feeling a little part of me died when I took it out.
A behind-the-scenes clip from the edit suite shown in the documentary shows an exclusive shot with Dory with the jellyfishes that never turns up in the final movie, and is neither acknowledged or touched upon in the documentary, certainly making it a very curious piece. Initially, when Marlin and Dory are trying to communicate to a whale, the mammal was meant to slowly approach them before snatching them up. And while the animation was finalised and shown in the third trailer, it was decided that it would be far more suspenseful if the whale just drifted off in the far distance, only to suddenly reappear behind Dory and Marlin. Comparing the audio from the trailer to the final film, it seems that the same track for Dory was used, although with the ending sentence either sped up or changed to a different take.
Don't worry, whales don't eat clownfish, they eat krill. Don't worry, whales don't eat clownfish, they eat krill.
To cap things off, we come to the most ambitious and intriguing camp project from the Disney lineup. That being the multi-crossover event, The Search for Mickey Mouse. This is one I imagine the majority of my viewers may be already familiar with, although something to bear in mind is that this project was never officially announced as an upcoming Disney film. The only reason that we know about this project to begin with is via courtesy of leaked information. And as we'll soon see, the story got around by Chinese whispers, meaning that there's always that probability that something got misinterpreted down the road, meaning that it may just be a soft truth from what we actually know. The earliest article posted about the movie was on the website Ain't It Cool News, published on the 26th of June of 2000, where apparently during that point the movie was just merely being discussed as a possible direct-to-video movie to be released in 2003 to mark the 75th anniversary of Mickey Mouse. The crew was still waiting for the go-ahead from Mike Eisner, suggesting that the movie may have just been pitched at the time. The blog post discusses in detail on how for at least the past decade, Disney had been trying to put together a multifaceted crossover from all of their animated feature films. One of the earliest attempts was during the production of Roller Coaster Rabbit, a 1990 Roger Rabbit short film, where during a sequence where Roger and baby Herman are on the roller coaster, that another coaster zooms past them quickly, containing a whole host of Disney characters, with Mickey and Minnie in the front to Monstro in the far back, going by so fast that Roger and Herman briefly pause as to what they've just seen. Apparently, the animators were so committed to this one little gag that they sourced through the Disney archival library to find reference and model sheets to make sure that each character looked on point. When the scene was previewed, the crew felt that the gag went past far too quickly to fully appreciate. And then when they tried slowing down the coaster, they felt that it looked just far too cluttered and distracted from the rest of the short. So it was admitted out for the final film. The blog post doesn't clarify if the scene was fully completed. There was also an attempt to make a short segment crossover in the animated feature Fantasia 2000. There was an idea to feature all the Disney characters as an audience, watching Mickey and his friends doing an orchestrated music show, composing to the music Pomp and Circumstance, being loosely inspired from the Mickey Mouse short Symphony Hour. Numerous of gags were conjured up for each animated character to get involved with. But it was felt yet again that the concept was a little bit too big and convoluted for its own good. So they tried simplifying it down to just be about the Disney princesses. The idea involved each Disney princess child graduating from kindergarten, with their parents looking on emotionally. Or instead, all of the Disney princesses and their princes getting married. But eventually, the crossover segment never amounted to anything. And the music that would have been used, Pomp and Circumstance, would be readopted for the Donald Duck segment, dealing with the story of Noah's Ark. Anyway, heading straight back to the search for Mickey Mouse. Aside from mentioning that the film would feature every Disney animated character, and Basil of Baker Street would be the main protagonist, the blog post doesn't give any more insight as to what the film would have been about. However, the individual that first wrote about the film, under the handle Moo Cow, wrote a follow-up post 2 years later by the end of 2002, on the site Jim Hill Media, revealing that the movie will not be happening not for the foreseeable future, explaining that the writers were struggling to make a viable storyline for the movie. He also mentions a few more plot details about the film, that after the disappearance of Mickey, Minnie hires Basil to search for him. Basil is accompanied with Donald and Goofy. The trio search the world, encountering characters from every single Disney film. The movie that was made in place for the search for Mickey Mouse would be titled Mickey, Donald and Goofy, The Three Musketeers, released direct-to-video in 2004. The Musketeers concept was actually an abandoned short film idea from the 1980s. Apparently, in the following year of 2005, the site WDW Radio reported that the search for Mickey Mouse was back in development, alleged to be now Walt Disney Animation Studios' 50th feature film, for a planned release date in 2012. I couldn't find the original article that this was reported in, and the Lost Media Wiki didn't provide a reference link to the page. And there really isn't any other official confirmation that this was going to be Disney's long-term game plan. But by the time that we did get to Walt Disney's 50th animated feature, it was tangled, so this hopeful rumour never amounted to anything. But in the late 2010s, we did get a multi-Disney crossover within the movie Ralph Breaks the Internet, where Vanellope jumps on the site Oh My Disney, getting to meet and hang out with all the Disney princesses. And then again in 2023 in the Disney short Once Upon a Studio. Not just featuring the Disney princesses, but additionally featuring a multitude of Disney characters. While the filmmakers to both projects have never claimed any direct connection to the search for Mickey Mouse, it's certainly nice to finally see it in some capacity. And perhaps it was a wise move to keep it short and sweet, where if it was feature length you got that problem of trying to give every single character some kind of spotlight, and at the same time trying to maintain a compelling narrative throughout the feature. That, and you run the risk of the novelty overstaying its welcome.